What's up, guys? So today I figured since last time I spoke about my time through the whole VA disability process, I guess in a nutshell, I figured today I'd go ahead and cover my experience with probably one of the hardest exams you have to go through, and it was definitely the hardest exam I did, which was the mental health one. But I'll go ahead and start from the whole process with getting my CMP exam booked and the day of, and what happened after. As you know from the last video, I had a bunch of other exams scheduled, but the mental health one was pretty much like pretty difficult, and I'll kind of list down the multitude of reasons as to why that was difficult. But hopefully, this helps you guys out, because I know most veterans suffer from some sort of mental issue, you know, and so hopefully this helps you out. Maybe if you've been hesitant to file a disability claim for mental health, whether it be depression, anxiety, PTSD, any of those things, don't hesitate. Seek treatment, seek help, and get what you deserve, because most times your mental health was affected almost permanently from your time in service. So get what you deserve. So my experience. So we'll start from cradle and then we'll go to grave. I basically, after I submitted my documentation, and I explained that in the last video, within a week of me submitting the documents, actually no, I'm so sorry. That was in April. I didn't get a call back or a notification for my CMP exam scheduling until about July. I think it was beginning of July. And so that's like 3 months, right? May, June, July. Anyways, because I had initially filed like mid to late April. So anyways, once I got the notification said it was from the VA. It was I believe it was a text, right? And if you opt into text and emails, then you'll get text and emails, right, with the VA. And so they notified me saying, hey, you have a CMP exam to be scheduled or something like that with, in my case, it was QTC, right? And there's like tons of others. They have opt-in, not tons of others, but you have a few others that are contracted, right, by the VA. And so I got that notification, and then once I got that notification, I read it, and it said that QTC would give you a call back within 72 hours, I believe. I was like, that seemed a little too long for me, given that it was like a Thursday. I was like, so I gotta wait till Monday, because they're not gonna give me a call on Saturday, right? So I gave them a call. Luckily, they said VA had submitted their request for my examination for all my issues, right? And they're separate examinations. And then they went ahead and scheduled me, right? And they'll give you a bunch of options. In my case, they gave me like several different days. You could do it on the same day, whatever time slots, and it's based on really the examiner's availability, right? And these examiners, they're doctors. Most of them are doctors that are, licensed and educated in, what to look out for and what to, examine you on. So anyways, I got that scheduled, and there was maybe about a 1.5 week buffer between when I got those exams scheduled and when I actually had the exam, because I had the exam in July as well, the exams. And so in the meantime, they were like, oh yeah, you'll go ahead and get these packets in the mail. You just fill them out to the best of your ability or whatever, and sign them, and then bring them with you to the exam. Those are your DBQs, right? Those questionnaires that you get. And basically we'll ask you about your issue, when it started, in detail. We'll give you like different questions to answer that basically revolves around that one issue that you have, right? And they'll give you several different packets for several different or several different questionnaires for several different issues that you might submit claims for and that you're going to examine for. And so for the mental health one, And you can find these easily just by Googling, VA, disability, mental health, DBQ, or whatever claim you're trying to make, DBQ, and you'll be able to find what I'm talking about. It basically gives you a list of questions to answer, and it'll give you like, how frequently are you feeling XYZ? Then you fill in how frequently. You'll give from 1 to 10. You'll ask you a bunch of those kinds of questions, and then you bring that packet. So I brought that packet with me to the VA, to the QTC, right? And I gave it to them. Basically, what ends up happening, I believe, is that the examiner will take that packet and review your answers, and it also helps with your backup documentation. And then the examiner actually has their own DBQ that they fill out in the middle of their your examination, right? So if you ever been through a CMP exam, they ask you a bunch of questions, and usually is pretty exact on like the actual DBQ. If you had read it prior, you're like, I think I know what you're asking me because I've read this before. And that's why I always recommend read the DBQs before you actually go in, so you know what they're asking you, and you know how to answer to the best of your ability, right? And you're not kind of, I don't want to say you're lying, but you don't want to like, because in my case, because of my mental health issues and whatever, I tend to forget things really easily, and I just get really bad anxiety, and so I have to write things down, and I have to take notes, and just to remind myself what I'm doing. I religiously have an agenda book or a notebook that has things that I need. So anyways, for this case, I did. I brought my notebook, and I prior to that, I had wrote pretty much whatever the DBQ said and was asking me. At least I was able to sit down and like give myself time to actually like think about the answers I was saying, because I needed time to think about what I was, because you go into these exams and you feel a lot of pressure, right? And usually that could be a bad thing, because you're not really saying the right things that describes how you are actually feeling or what you're going through and what you have been through, right? And so I did that, and this video is on my depression, my mental health exam, right? And this is pretty much exactly how it went. I got to the CMP place, the QTC office. I told them I was there. I gave them my packet full of all these different DBQs and such, and then I just sat there for my exam, waiting my turn, right, for an examiner. Fast forward, I get to my mental health one, and I had a really weird, I don't want to say bad experience, but it was definitely a weird experience with this examiner. And I hear stories like this all the time, especially with the mental health one. And I don't know if they're just particularly trained to try to weed out, BS, or weed out if you're actually depressed, because it's really hard to prove mental health, right? Because it's your mind. But good indicators is medical records. But in reality, if someone says they're depressed, how do you really tell, right? You have to look at characteristics of the person, and all these different things that I'm not fairly educated in any of it. So I guess she was trying to weed me out to figure out if I was lying, but I wasn't. So this is pretty much how it went. I got in there, I figured, I was like, hey, how you doing? And in this case, I sat down, and she started asking me questions, and the look that she gave me the entire time was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just all like, like trying to wait for me to like say something that was like stupid, or say something that was just like, I don't know. And the way, some of these examiners, the way they kind of treat you is like they're waiting for you to like, confess or something, or like say like, I robbed the bank or whatever. And it's like, it gives you this odd feeling of pressure and anxiety that is so unnecessary, because if you have real anxiety, you know what it feels like, and you don't want unnecessary spikes, right? So in this case, I kind of understood what she was trying to maybe do. Maybe it's all in my mind, right? But some of you guys might know what I'm talking about. But I had a feeling that she was like trying to get some sort of answers out of me that was kind of where she could just pretty much be like, oh, this is a bunk, you know, exam or something, and just say like, hey, we have another guy that was lying, or don't give him the rating he deserves. And so I had that experience, and she was asking me like, when did this all start? I told her when it started. I was very apparent, or transparent with my timeline, and that did really change. Like I said, I could have a bad memory, so I had all my notes written down of like events, rough timelines, all that stuff, and it basically correlated with my backstory, right? My medical records, and that's why you need your medical records. And so, you know, she at the end of the exam, you know, she asked me. She was just giving me very sarcastic, and I don't remember her name, but she was just very, I don't know, she was just very much, I don't want to say condescending, but that's kind of the closest thing I can think of, is just condescending the entire time. I was trying to be as genuine and as polite as possible, because that was my first round of exams that I ever gone through, and I didn't know really how the process worked. And so when she was asking me questions, I was like, I am not educated in this, but this is what I'm feeling, and this is kind of what I think it is, et cetera, et cetera. But you can look at my medical records and see if I'm being accurate or whatever. And she was just like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. But anyways, so that ended. It was weird because the entire time I felt like she was kind of trying to beat me over the head and try to get something out of me. And then at the end of the exam, she was all nice. So I was like, man, this feels really two-faced and weird. And I'm like, how is someone like this trying to evaluate people with mental health issues? It just doesn't make sense, because there's people, I'm sure, that are way worse than mentally than, you know, as far as depression and stuff goes, than me. And if they're going through these exams, and if they're going through this person, which I'm assuming this person sees tons of people on a weekly basis, man, that must be a lot for them to handle. But anyways, fast forward after that, and you know, side note, I had a bunch of other exams that same day. I don't think they're really worth getting into in this video, but there are all different experiences with different people and different exams, for different cases. I didn't get a rating for any of those, just because I didn't have enough backup documentation. I have enough medical records to prove that, you know, they're actual legitimate claims. And, you know, I get it. You know, the VA wants to wants to kind of partition and make sure they're doing they're giving the appropriate claims, and they're basically trying to retain money, right? Because it is expensive to be giving veterans a whole bunch of money all the time. But I lost my train of thought. That happens a lot. But basically, those I didn't get approved for those claims, so I didn't. And maybe I'll go into the exam experiences if you guys would like to know about that. But after that, from July to October was basically a waiting period. And what ends up happening is CMP examiner, that DBQ I was talking about that they fill out. And they fill it out. They write up like a report or something, and they send it off to the VA rater, right? And then what usually happens is the rater will find something that stands out to them, per maybe a correction that they believe needs to be made, or verification or clarification. So they'll send it back to the examiner, which happened in my case, and then the examiner will do whatever they need to do, and then send it back to the VA. And sometimes I've heard the VA do they'll send back the document, several times, and it sounds like they just are not satisfied with what the examiner's saying, for whatever reason, and so they'll do this back and forth. And that kind of happened in my case, right? I'll see DBQ, it's all the same thing. And so this lasted from July through October. Finally, middle of October, received a notification. And when you guys get that feeling, that notification about you having your rating, gosh, even if you only have 30%, and I was only at 30% at the time, you just feel like this, this feeling of, okay, that, you feel like some redemption, maybe, I don't know, but that's what I felt. And granted, it wasn't, most of my stuff didn't get approved, right? Most of it got denied. It was really just my mental health got approved, that I got rated on, and it was one of the lowest ratings, which was 30%. But 30% you get qualified for a lot of different things, which I can get into later. But that was my process, and that's kind of how my mental health exam went. In a nutshell, it was pretty daunting, and I think my number one tip for you, out of all the different tips that I might have just gave you, was if you are going to have an exam, and in this case, right, mental health exam, there's a few things. Do not go in there trying to either put on a face of any type. Don't go in there happier than you usually are. Don't go there sadder than you usually are if you know you're not that sad that day. If you go in there and he or she or whatever, they ask you, how you're feeling that day, you could be better, right? Because some days you have better days, and that day might just be the best day out of the week, and it just so happened to fall on your exam day, and you have to don't think about that day. Think about the 8 out of 10 times you're feeling most of the month or most of the year, right? Or for the past however many years it's been. Think about, be very careful with how you answer these things, because I've seen a lot of people fail their exams or get denied, and they truly deserve, a rating, and not only just a rating, but a pretty high rating, right? I'm talking 70%, or more. And so really, what maybe saves some of these guys is their medical records, because maybe they didn't say something that was probably accurate, but all their medical records back them up. So if you don't have all the medical records to back you up, your answers really matter. Your answers matter regardless, right? But it matters even more if you don't have the many records to back up your claim, if you know what I mean. So make sure that you're picking your words wisely. Take notes before you go. Be yourself, right? And just be honest. And yeah, that's about it. Sorry this took so long, but I just wanted to get that all out there.